dissertation subject this year is Can Twitter Get You Elected?, which looks at the role that social media will play in the forthcoming general election. It'll be a very interesting election this time, and many people are already kind of dubbing it Ireland's first social election. There are no clear favourites, there are no clear candidates, and parties, candidates and independent candidates in particular will do everything they can to get an advantage, to get their message out there. Experts estimate that as many as 30 independent candidates will actually make up the 166 members of the next Dáil, which I suppose puts a huge emphasis on how they're going to get their message out there. They're going to have to find a way to make themselves heard in a very crowded market, a market that would be dominated by the main political parties, and to find a way of getting exposure when the mainstream television and print media will focus very much on the main parties and the main policies. So social media will play a very important part in helping them find a platform. To put it in perspective, in the last election, at the time of the last election, 2011, a Red Sea poll showed that 8% of the population had a smartphone, and 27% of the population had some sort of iPad or tablet. At the end of last year, 64% of people owned a smartphone, and 82% of people had an iPad or a portable device. So you can see where the focus is going to be, you can see where the focus is going to shift, and you can see how parties and politicians will try to take advantage of that, will try to kind of tap into the whole digital space and use that medium to their advantage. This challenge for me during my research will not so much be the gathering of tweets, which is the easy part, but it's the analysing of the vast amount of data that will be available and that I hope to collect. To help me with that, I'm going to collaborate with the Centre for Social Media Analysis at the University of Sussex, an independent university who did a lot of work during the last election in Britain, and I rang them up and asked them would they be interested in getting involved in the next general election, and they were very excited because they actually haven't worked outside of England before, so it'll very much be a learning process for them as well. During the British election, they developed some in-house software to allow them make sense of the vast amounts of tweets that they gathered during the month-long campaign. They developed software using natural language processing, which taught machines how to recognise and read tweets and sort them into different groups and categories. And using the natural language processing, they were able to develop algorithms to again help them make sense of Twitter. So they could actually identify if Twitter was talking about a specific candidate, if Twitter was talking about a specific topic, if it was talking about a specific name or event. The collaboration with the University of Sussex will very much be a two-way street. As I mentioned, they have no experience working outside of Britain and have no experience of the political situation in Ireland, so I will help them develop the algorithms, helping them with key names, key addresses, locations, the names of parties, and also I will drop the full list of candidates, so obviously that'll be fed into their database. I also need to get a look at and will learn from myself how to put together algorithms, how data is gathered and analysed, and then how outputs are measured. So that whole methodology is very important because for my dissertation to stand up, that whole process will have to be visible. I also plan to make use of all the raw data that's produced during this month-long campaign. I'm not quite sure what format that will actually be in or how visible it will actually be, but certainly it will be of use to somebody so I hope to make that available. And of course, all politics is local, so one specific focus of my research will be on Cork alone, and I'm hoping again with the university to develop algorithms to focus on Cork for 1 week of the campaign, to see if we can identify what local issues, what local candidates Twitter is talking about, who's winning on Twitter, who's losing on Twitter, the key moments, the gaffes, who made the biggest impact, and as well as mapping tweets nationally. I also be able to I'm also hoping to be able to draw up some geographical maps of Cork City and County, so you can compare parts of the city that were more active. Was Douglas more active than Ballincollig? Was Ballyvolane more active than Blackrock? The same-sex referendum brought home to a lot of people, in particular a lot of political parties, was the power and potential and the impact social media can actually have. It was the first time in this country where the power was returned to the people, and it was they themselves who built the momentum to force political parties to change. A classic example of that was the Get the Vote to Vote campaign, which started in Britain and started across Twitter and then spread to Facebook. And on the back of that, 25,000 young people signed up for the first time. They registered for the first time to vote. So that potential is there. The difficulty this time around, and with all elections, is that people are disinterested. People don't trust politicians. People don't trust politics. But I think there's potential there again for a sea change this time around, but a sea change that's not driven by the parties themselves, but by people, because they will be very active on social media and they will play their part. So the challenge for me in terms of my dissertation will be to not only gauge and monitor Twitter during the whole campaign, but to be able to accurately capture that information, then parse and analyse it in a tangible way that is both open and stands up to scrutiny, and then to use that information to help me produce not only a digital artefact, but also that will form the basis of my dissertation.